Hey, what's happening everybody out there? I'm Jakejames Lugo. Welcome to the channel. So let's talk about Marvel's Iron Fist. It's already out on Netflix at the time I'm recording this vlog. It's been out for about a full day, so I will be getting into spoilers as far as like talking about the series as a whole. If you guys haven't checked already and you want a more spoiler-free review, check the description down below for my spoiler-free review of the first 6 episodes of Marvel's Iron Fist on Netflix. It's over on the Koalition.com's YouTube channel, and you can also find it on the Koalition.com itself. It'll be there if you guys want a non-spoiler filled review. But this one, we're going to get right into spoilers. Now, if anybody that knows me or if you've been following my channel for quite some time or any of my work, you guys know that I've been really hyped up for Marvel's Iron Fist for some time. I was really excited when they announced that they were going to be doing a series based on the Iron Fist. As a kung fu movie buff and someone that loves action or martial arts movies, those are the types of stuff that I love to see. It really got me excited to see what the Marvel Cinematic Universe was going to be like in their interpretation of this style of TV show or this style of film and such. Now, going into the first 6 episodes of Marvel's Iron Fist, I was really disappointed. You know, as a little bit of a summary from my spoiler-free review, I really didn't feel that the show was really doing a lot of good. It was struggling from an identity crisis. I felt like there was a lot of, a lot of time in between the different action sequences that I really feel like a lot of people were going to be coming to this show expecting an abundance of. One of the biggest things and one of the biggest problems that I have is not necessarily a lot of the stuff that everybody was really getting all bent out of shape about in relation to Finn Jones and the casting of the show. It was really about those first few episodes when you actually start watching Iron Fist, is that it feels more kind of like, a psychological thriller or a suspense type of series rather than an action or martial arts series. And I, myself included, as well as a bunch of other people that were anticipating this, were expecting right from the very get-go to hit the ground running with a bunch of crazy action sequences, a bunch of crazy fight sequences, and all this other stuff that we were expecting from a Marvel superhero show. In the same vein that I felt that Marvel's Luke Cage handles in that whole blaxploitation type of genre and that type of era of filmmaking, I was expecting a martial arts take for the Iron Fist. And we didn't really get that, especially within the first few episodes. Now, after episode 5 or 6, I want to say, and you could even argue episode 4 here and there with some of the characters that you start seeing getting into fights, and you start to see Danny Rand, who's played by Finn Jones, really start to show it and flex his muscles as far as, the action sequences. That's when things start to pick up. It's a very slow burn for Marvel's Iron Fist, and I think that's a huge problem, especially with all 3 of the previous Netflix series that have come out before being so good in their regards. They had some slow burns here and there, you got to admit that, but definitely not as slow and not as dragged out as what I'm seeing with Marvel's Iron Fist. Now, moving on from like episode 7 onward, there's about 12-13 episodes in total in the entire series. I felt like the action sequences and the fights and the choreography got much better as you got more towards the later half of the actual season, but it still doesn't say it as much, and it doesn't really give a testament as much as this being a good series compared to stuff like what you saw from Daredevil season 1 and 2, stuff like what you saw from Luke Cage, as well as a bunch of other action and martial arts shows that are out on the market now. Into the Badlands is a perfect example that everybody keeps pointing to, not because of the ethnicity, I can't pronounce that word, or the descent or the race of the actual actors that are playing these roles, but more so in the way that the choreography and the action sequences played out in that show. It really could have worked well for Iron Fist, and I really believe in some regard in the development of Iron Fist. They were really trying to hammer that down. They were really trying to attempt that, but I think the problems with budget, problems with scripting are really what bogged this entire series down. Now, let's talk about the controversy that a lot of people were really getting bent out of shape about in regards to Iron Fist leading up to its release recently. I feel like that the show is getting unjustifiably kind of like criticized and scrutinized by a lot of different people, not just critics. I feel like critics are coming more from a place of genuine nature when they're actually talking about the real problems with Iron Fist. There are a few that are really kind of commenting on the race of Finn Jones and all the other actors and saying that it gets into this whole thing about like the way that Asians and Oriental people are really portrayed in media. I don't think that really is kind of like the core of the problems with Iron Fist as a show. I think a lot of people are reaching in that regard, especially if you've never really read any of the previous comics or, again, the source material for Iron Fist from Marvel. I feel like it's a little bit unjustified, a little bit messed up that a lot of people are really giving Finn Jones a lot of crap for portraying Danny Rand. I feel like his issue is not so much him as an actor. I think the problem is the script. as a good actor, again, with any form of media, especially in movies, you can only give an actor so much to do with a bad script. They can only do so much for you. It really comes down to the way that how good the script is written, as well as also how good the direction is. Now, granted, some of these episodes that were littered throughout the entire series were directed by different people. I know that one of them was directed by the RZA. I want to say that it was episode 5 or 6. It's the one where Danny goes to Madame Gao into like this sort of like tournament or contest where he faces each one of her different types of like underlings. You know, they're all different martial arts masters and they have like different styles they have. It's a real big callback to the Game of Death, which is Bruce Lee's last movie, or one of his last films that he actually tried to finish up. It's a real big callback to that, and I thought it was pretty cool. I expected more of that, and I was really kind of like hoping that the first few episodes of Iron Fist were exactly like that episode 5 and 6. That would have been the jumping point for a lot of people, and I think a lot more people would have enjoyed this series. Now, going back to what I was talking about, I feel like a lot of the show and a lot of the criticism of it is really unjustified. It's really been throwing a lot of shade at Finn Jones when it's not his fault. He's doing the best that he can. I think that he's definitely going to get another shot with Danny Rand during the Defenders show. A lot of the other issues with Iron Fist is that it has to lead directly into the Defenders. The Hand is a big part of the actual stuff that's going to be going down in that show when all these different Marvel heroes come together. I feel like a lot of the setup for the Hand was done in other shows like Daredevil, and they talked a little bit about it here and there in Luke Cage. Not as much, but more so in, Daredevil. And they try to reiterate a few little things here and there, especially with Madame Gao, but I felt like it was unneeded. They spent way too much time in Marvel's Iron Fist focusing on stuff that I didn't think was interesting. The Meacham twins, the Meacham brother and sister, I feel like while those are good, interesting characters, or they can be in some regard, especially since they're directly from the source material, those could have been really cool, but a lot of the stuff that they get caught up in within those first 4 or 5 episodes is just very boring. It just was not interesting whatsoever. It really took away from the excitement of what this show should have been bringing. Colleen Wing is another thing I want to comment on that I feel like a lot of people are really giving a lot of pass to, and she's good in her own right. She has a lot of good action sequences that really showcase her physicality and really shows the expressiveness of her in those kind of like crazy action moments. That's pretty cool, but I felt like not only with the marketing material that was trying to push what that show is about, like it almost made it seem like Colleen Wing is the Iron Fist and not Danny Rand. And while it's cool that she's an awesome supporting character, she's great in the roles and the stuff that she does, she's a badass in some regard, it's still a lot of the focus and a lot of the excitement should be coming from Danny Rand, and I felt like that wasn't given to Finn Jones whatsoever, or at least in a lot of respects throughout the course of Iron Fist. Now, there's a couple other characters from the comics that do make an appearance towards the later parts of the show, including Davos and Bakudo. Now, Davos and Bakudo are characters that are pretty much kind of, not anti-heroes, but really kind of a lot of the different foes and nemesis, or however you pronounce it, for the Iron Fist in the comics. Davos was a character that's actually from Kunlun, which is the main city of the actual Iron Fist lore. That's, one of the top capital cities of heavens. And Davos is someone that's really highly connected to the Iron Fist because he has a similar power to him. Now, while the show really didn't get into a lot of the dynamic, and it really should have, between the two, because I felt like there could have been a lot of interesting storytelling there, it felt like it was rushed. It was one of the common problems that we see from Marvel, where a lot of the villains that are really big names related to those heroes and those characters don't get a lot of time to shine. Like, they don't really get enough time in the spotlight, and they're kind of just shooed away to the side in favor of these other things that they're building up to. And I felt like Davos was a big problem with that, even though he does have a few instances where he has some good fights. He's fighting alongside Danny Rand, and he even gets in Danny Rand's face a few moments, which is kind of, I guess you could say, alluding to what's going to go down later on if the show even gets a second season. Now, Bakudo is another one where I saw what Bakudo's thing was right away, immediately when I first saw him in the series, because I read some of the comics. He's one of the guys that works for the Hand, and when it's finally revealed, I feel like he would have been a better overarching villain besides Madame Gao, because once he comes into the picture, they kind of like shoo away Madame Gao, and I feel like she's going to come back in the Defenders, but with the time that he's around and actually kind of, doing different stuff and comes into play with a lot of these different issues that pop up for Danny Rand, he's good, but then at some point everything comes to a screeching halt, and it's like, oh, okay, well, what happened? And I feel like maybe he'll come back in the Defenders as well, but once he leaves, they go back to like the Meacham stuff, which is, again, a whole nother thing where I felt like was just very boring and was not interesting enough, and they spent so much time onto it. It just wasn't wasn't exciting. It just wasn't filled with a lot of action. They have a few moments here and there, but it really wasn't about that. I feel like that was part of an entirely different show that they could have did with another character instead of what they should have been doing with the Iron Fist. Now, a couple of things I want to comment on, okay? There are some characters that from the different series, the different Marvel Netflix series that do appear, including the Night Nurse, including the attorney that we see in Jakejames. She's actually Danny Rand's attorney, you know, for Danny Rand's family. That's pretty cool, you know, the actress that played Trinity. I thought that was pretty awesome. Rosario Dawson as the Night Nurse. There are a couple other little nods to both Luke Cage and a little bit of Daredevil and also Jakejames. They were kind of thrown in there very quickly, a little like fun little winks to the audience. I thought that was fine. I really wish that we actually got another Marvel Defenders character that showed up besides Rosario Dawson, besides the attorney and everybody else. That would have made a little bit much more excitement and really connected to the Defenders show. I feel like when they're finally all together, that's when things are going to get really awesome and really exciting. But I felt like that's the type of adrenaline rush that Marvel's Iron Fist really needed. It needed something else to really kind of get people to have like a really awesome payoff or something to really get invested in to kind of get past all that boring stuff and all those like overly extended scenes and segments that a lot of people, myself included, didn't really enjoy. One of the other big problems I want to talk about with Iron Fist, and I think this is a huge problem that could be a real detriment to Marvel in any other projects that they do if they really get caught up on this, is this fear of really going all the way with some of their characters. Now, again, this could be a really big issue with budget. This could be a really big issue with some of the storytelling and the fear that the public won't really latch onto it, you know, for one reason or another. But this idea with the Iron Fist that they never really go full-fledged and full forward with Kung Lun. They don't even really show Kung Lun until the later half of the series, which is not even showing the city itself. It's a real kind of like, you know, held back and diffused version of what Kung Lun could be, as well as also showing and explaining what the Iron Fist is. This is a huge problem with the series. You don't really understand what the Iron Fist is until you get to like episode 7, 8, maybe 9. And that's a real big issue because a lot of people are going to watch the first few episodes of this series and be totally lost on what the Iron Fist is besides the glowing hand, which is another issue where I think that comes more into play with budget, where they couldn't do the Iron Fist effect as much as they wanted to, and they could only limit it to one hand, because in the comics, Danny fights with both hands. Both of his fists are glowing, and in the show, it's only one, in which they're saying Iron Fist. I guess it's not plural like that, but it's a real big issue that I feel that people were expecting, and they really wanted them to go full-fledged and go crazy with that whole ordeal, but they never really do so throughout the entirety of the series. One of the other issues also, they never show the dragon Lu Shao, I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's the dragon that Danny Rand fights in order to gain the power of the Iron Fist. Not only do they not explain that until much later, and they only allude to it here and there, but they never really show that, and I felt like they should have. That would have been an awesome thing. It could have done, again, probably took a huge hit to the budget with CG, but I feel like they should have showed that a little bit more rather than the flashes here and there. Kind of like in a very Arrow-esque or even Batman Begins type of way they handle that, which is, you could like it or not, it's a very subjective thing, but I feel like they should have shown that fight with the dragon, or at least show Danny Rand actually taking down the dragon in Kung Lun in order to gain the power of the Iron Fist. That would have been something interesting. I felt like that would have been much more of a bigger payoff going through some of those episodes that just dragged on before the ending of the series. And then finally, my last point I want to bring to the very end of the series. Okay, again, we're already past the point of spoilers at this point, so let's just kind of just dive into it. The very end of the series, the very last episode, the way that it wraps up everything. Colleen Wing and Danny Rand are together. I guess you could say that they're a couple at this point. They're going to go to Kung Lun, or Danny's trying to bring Colleen Wing to Kung Lun. And when they get there, Kung Lun is completely destroyed, or at least the gateway is completely destroyed. That kind of sucks because I feel like that is a huge missed opportunity for later down the line. Because you could get into stuff about the immortal weapons, you could get into stuff about Kung Lun and Davos and the whole dynamic between him and the Iron Fist and Danny Rand. All that stuff I feel like they kind of just shoved to the side, maybe again for budget reasons. Maybe it could have been because, you know, some of the writers of the storytelling of this actual series weren't really kind of fans of the Iron Fist and they just want to push forward with Defenders, and I can understand that. But you lose all that stuff, you know, as far as in relation to the different capital cities of heaven and all these other things that come from the Iron Fist comics that you could have implemented into this series and made it much more interesting, especially if this thing gets to season 2, which for all signs, after watching the entire series as someone that was really highly anticipating it, I don't think it's going to get renewed for a second season. Just the level of backlash that Iron Fist is getting from a lot of people, critics and fans alike, and just the way that everybody feels about it after watching everything in its entirety, I don't think that Marvel's going to renew this for a second season. I think they're just going to keep Danny Rand just kind of like tied to the Defenders, or maybe have him pop up in Luke Cage, because I know Luke Cage is going to get a second season, or maybe Daredevil, or any of the series. Punisher. We still got Punisher that's going to be after the Defenders show. I feel like it's not going to be another Iron Fist show after this, and that's a shame because there's so much cool stuff that I feel like they could have done. This show, to be honest with you guys, should have been either like Into the Badlands or even like Vanishing Sun. If you guys are old school fans of like, you know, TV series and you remember the action pack from back in the day, Vanishing Sun with a few tweaks here and there could have been what the Iron Fist show would have been like, and that would have been awesome, but it just doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. So overall, guys, that's my full review and my thoughts about Iron Fist on Netflix. I was really highly anticipating this. I don't think it's really that great. It's not a complete disaster like a lot of people are making it out to be, and I don't think it's really fair to the show or to the actors to be throwing shade or criticizing it over all the different races, or at least, you know, the different race issues that have been popped up about the series. But I feel like based on its own merits and the way that it's handled as a show, the way that it's designed, the way it's directed, the way that it tells the story, it's probably the first dud that we've seen from Marvel in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, period. And I think that's really telling about something, not because Marvel is dying, or Marvel Studios or Marvel Cinematic Universe is dying. It goes to show you that it took very long for Marvel to really have a miss with everybody. You know, they got 3 Netflix series with a 4th one now, you know, after Iron Fist, on the way that might be a hit, you know, and it's not something where I feel like we have to be really kind of like condescending to Marvel Studios or to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, at some point, everybody at some point is going to have that miss. Let's just hope that the Marvel and the directors and all the other people that are over there making decisions really get a lot of good lessons from this and really kind of, you know, understand like what didn't work and how not to do that in the following shows that come afterwards. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts on the Iron Fist. Leave me a comment down below on the comment section and let me know what you guys feel about the show. If you guys want to talk about any plot points or anything else, this is full spoilers, so go nuts in the comment section. Don't forget to leave me a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be posting up more vlogs very, very soon. Whole bunch of other stuff I want to talk about, but again, we'll be talking about other Marvel Netflix series as well as also Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. Guardians of the Galaxy is right around the corner, so I'm super hyped for that, and as well as a bunch of other cool stuff here on the channel. So make sure that you guys subscribe to it. I will talk to all of you guys again very soon. Peace out. Stay epic, everybody.